Hello, world of YouTube, and welcome to another episode of ARC, the show where I get to be an asshole reviewing comics. And this month, in vein of it being, in keeping with the trends of the spooky times that we're in, because it's October, I figured I'd cover a one-off story that I talked about in the last comic haul that I did. It was the last thing I showed off, and it sees a marriage of two of my favorite things, magic and vampires. I love the cosmic arts, especially how Marvel does it, and I like Dracula. So what better way to bring those together than by talking about Doctor Strange versus Dracula, a one-off comic that was published in 1994 that sees the Sorcerer Supreme going up against the King of Transylvania. And I didn't talk about this when I was going over the beginning setup of this, and I didn't talk about this when I was initially filming it, but the first part of the story, because the story is in two parts, was written by Marv Wolfman and drawn by Gene Colan and Tom Palmer. And the second part was written by Steve Englehart and also drawn by Gene Colan and Tom Palmer, who did a lot of the inks and coloring. I normally like to talk about that stuff. I want to talk about who brings these comics to life, and so that's why I'm doing it now. Now, when reading this, I didn't know how it was going to come together. I didn't know what was going to bring Doctor Strange and Dracula at odds. I didn't know why Blade wasn't there. I didn't know any of that. I didn't know how their fight was going to go down, because Doctor Strange isn't really a physical guy. You know, he's more of a cerebral fighter. That's one of the things I like about him. It's one of the things I like about his movie, too. I like that they use a lot of those aspects of his character pretty well. And all of that's addressed pretty solidly in this story. You know, I like the setup. Wong is in a trance. He's not dead, but he's not alive either. He's in a sort of muggy gray area. Doctor Strange finds him. He sees that he's under the curse of Dracula after getting into his mind in a really cool sequence that sees Doctor Strange reliving his last moments. I love the framework of that. I love the art in that and in general in the book. It really taps into that transcendental style that sort of Doctor Strange has going on. And I like that attribute of it. And I like how it showcases that and throttles him into the world. I do like how Blade is in it for like 2 seconds. Like literally, Blade is these 3 panels. And then he's referenced at the end of the first part of this story. Where I guess it sets up another fight between Dracula and Blade that happens in a completely different story before diving back into the Doctor Strange Dracula fight. I don't know, this comic is weird. It's paced very strangely, but I enjoyed the read of it. Like I said, outside of the moment where that sets up the story where Doctor Strange gets into Wong's mind, I like a lot of the mind games that he plays with Dracula himself. I like how he doesn't want to kill him because he needs him to fix Wong, and I like how he does things like use blinding light, you know, use his memories to throttle his fear. He knows, he uses that to get into the mind of his adversary, to see what really makes Dracula tick. And I like that aspect of it. I actually like the moments where he taps into it, like in here when he's transporting him to his past through an illusion, or later on in the story, how he uses the illusion of his lost lover to sort of drive him mad. I like that aspect of it, and I like how that's how the fight really goes down. Like, they have a moment where they kind of are physically at odds. You know, he's restraining him with magic and all that sort of stuff. But I like how quickly Doctor Strange is actually kind of put into a really awkward instance. You know, I don't want to spoil too much of the story, but there is a point where Doctor Strange is, you know, kind of about to lose. And they use that as a good cliffhanger for the first half of the story. I like how they set up this foreboding tone that they then let the reader sort of get into the suspense of the character. What, is Doctor Strange going to be okay? Is he going to come back? How is he okay? How did this happen? You know, and I like how they use the mystical side of Strange to really set that up with him spending some of the story in an astral projected form, you know, and he uses that to his advantage. He uses his cosmic knowledge, his magic, to an advantage. And I like Dracula in this. I like how they play up his comic style, because there's an illusion that Doctor Strange does that where he uses an enemy of Dracula that I didn't know existed, because as much as I love Dracula and vampires, I've never read his Marvel Comics work. But there's a great moment where Doctor's son, who's an enemy of Dracula, is used as an illusion against him, and I like their back and forth that they have. I like Dracula's writing in this in general. It feels very old school vampire, but like in the 90s, it makes little sense, but I still think comes across really charming in a sense. I don't know. This is a fun read. This is a really fun read, and I like how in between the cliffhanger of the first part to the resolution in the second part, there's this cool little story about a vampire in the middle of it. It's got a really striking look in this like red ink. It looks really cool and talks about sort of this vampire that's in a village that he's already used all the resources of, and kind of has his own comeuppance in the end. But I like how they use that as sort of an interstitial, sort of one-off story to bookend, or kind of to transition between the first half of the story and the second half. And again, I didn't address this in the episode proper, but this Blood Lunge story was written by Doug Moench and drawn by Russ Heath. You know, while there's points that feel a little directionless, you know, the whole Blade setup to a completely different story. By the by, this is a really fun read, and I don't regret buying this, because it's a good sort of mood setter for the ages, you know. And I like that general aspect of the story, and it's a fun read. I feel like if you're wanting a good little Halloween comic, a good one-off story, you can't go wrong with this if you find this out in the wild, or if you're seeking a good sort of Doctor Strange read. I was pleasantly surprised, even though I was hyped for it. I was pleasantly surprised with how a fight between those two characters actually went off, and how it was not your typical sort of fist fight. It's a lot more cerebral, and I enjoyed that because it feels in line with both Dracula and Doctor Strange. Because Dracula, while he can throw down physically, you know, you fight him in Transylvania every time. As a villain, he's not a go-to, like, oh yeah, buff guy Dracula. You know what I mean? That's it. I mean, there's not really a whole lot to it. It's a cool fight. It's got a striking old school art style that plays up the mystic side of Doctor Strange really well. And it's a fun read. I thought it was well worth my time. And I think it'd be well worth yours as well. What do you think of these characters? What do you think of Doctor Strange? Do you like Doctor Strange? Obviously, I like Doctor Strange if you've seen my comic hauls. And I like Dracula, because I can't shut up about Castlevania. Are there any other horror characters you like? There were a couple other ideas. I wanted to look into some Morbius stuff. There was a crossover of Freddy and Jason and Ash from Evil Dead that I wanted to do this year, but I couldn't pull together either of those. And I found this, and I was like, yeah, that's a must-buy. So, what do you think of horror comics? What are some other spooky heroes, Halloween heroes that you enjoy? Let me know in those comments down below. This has been kind of a shorter arc, but there's not a whole lot of depth to it. They're not deconstructing social norms. They're not trying to use allegorical writing. It's just Doctor Strange fighting Dracula. It's a good time. If you want to see more of my music, gaming, and general nerdy content, be sure to subscribe. Special thanks to my patrons. If you want to join their ranks to get early access to content, exclusive content, or to help drive the community, it's linked in the description. I'm going to get out of here. I've been Viral Rack. You guys have good days, lives, and situations. And I'll see you another day.